Audicratic audio.
To touch on tapes and tape and shows, big shout out to my brother who was a huge fan of yours. Growing up, even when I was, 11, 12, 13, he was always staying up late, taping toast shows. So many toast tapes. I just remember going through them. And this was like really before I probably started getting to hip hop around like 13-ish, but he was a huge fan. And it's funny how, I learned a lot about hip hop really from him. I mean, if he wasn't my brother, I don't know what I'd really be listening to. A lot of the people I grew up with in Albany that a lot of us did listen to hip hop, probably outside of him, but I mean, he got what he loved. A lot of it was from you. So it's just funny how this many years later,
Yeah, I appreciate that.
it really probably was you feeding to him, feeding to me. So
Yeah, no, I appreciate
huge
that.
impact, huge impact you've had.
Yeah, that's great to hear. And actually, I mean, I got a call 2 weeks ago from a guy, and he's like, "Oh, I didn't know you were back on the air. I used to win tapes from you back in, blah blah blah, all this stuff off the radio." And I was like, "Dude, I've been back for 10 years. Like, I'm trying to get, But it was just good. It's good to hear that. So it's funny you mentioned that because I remember. Because you never know who's listening, right? So, you're on the radio. I'm just playing the music that I like and then trying to introduce some stuff, or I'd get a ton of requests and trying to introduce things into the playlist. But I remember one Saturday, so I was on Friday nights and during the prime time of my, time on WRPI, and I was going to Music Shack in Albany on Central, which is for those who don't know,
Oh, I
it's
used
a
to,
record
yeah.
store.
I used
Yeah.
to go there too back in
And
the day.
and so I remember being on Central and at the park, and then I'm walking, and I was walking with, I think it was DJ C Nice, who did my radio show with me for many years, and we were walking into Music Shack, and we heard a car go by playing our show from the night before, and it was, like, at the mic break or whenever I was giving shout outs to, people in jail or whatever I was doing at the time, and that where it hit me, and I'm like, "Ah, people are listening." Like, it was just by coincidence, I was walking down the
And that
street the
wasn't a
next.
replay or anything. That was probably that had to have been them recording and replaying it like through a
Yeah,
tape,
exactly. Yeah,
right?
because at the time, I'm thinking this was like 96, 97 time frame. Um, and I think it was 96 because I remember I was good friends with a woman who did promotion at Loud Records, and Mobb Deep's The Infamous had come out, and this is just a nugget, but the week that The Infamous dropped, it was the number one selling record SoundScan wise in Albany across all genres.
Oh, wow.
And she was like, "Oh my God," and Albany at the time, what are we at the time, maybe the 40th or 50th largest market in the country, but still no commercial rap radio, right? So it was either MTV or it was either college radio or mixtapes that kind of pushed that sort of Mobb Deep out into the masses, and for them to be the number one selling in this market across country pop or whatever else came out that week. And she was like, "How is that possible?" So she's like, go to Music Shack, make sure the stuff is, do me a favor, make sure there's still stuff in stock." So I remember I said, "All right, I'll go down to Music Shack on a Saturday and just make sure that the Infamous was still in there." But that was the day. And I said, "Okay, people are listening." So, try to introduce some stuff, some music to the audience that maybe they're not going to hear elsewhere and things like that. But yeah, big up to your brother. That's great to hear. And, I still get that. It's funny. My kids make fun because last year I went to a Red Sox game with my, boy, having grown up in Massachusetts, being Red Sox fans. And there was a guy 2 rows behind me who happened to know me. He's like, "Toast?" I'm like, "Oh," and it was a guy who works for DJ Premier, and he happened to be in the same section that night,
Oh,
2
wow.
rows behind me, and my kids always laugh. It's like we were out to dinner up here, I don't know, a couple of weeks ago, and I ran into somebody else, and they were like, "Oh," it's like, "Jesus, can we go somewhere, Dad, without you knowing somebody in the spot?" I'm like, "Well, it is kind of funny," but, anyway,
Wow,
that's
a shout out at a professional baseball game. That's
yeah,
that's
yeah,
top level.
that was kinda funny, but I was just like, "Oh."